Okay, so we're on 105A, 15 lines down, and we were discussing a ruling that was sent to the father of Shmuel, and we're going to see a different version, but the question is like details about the chalitza ceremony. Exactly where you do what, and there's spitting involved, there's removing of the shoe. So let's see what this version is. This is what the ruling was. Yevama shirakaka, a Yevama who spat, and she hadn't taken off the shoe yet. She's supposed to take off the shoe and then spit. Tachlotz, she has to, once she has done the spitting, she should take off the shoe. She doesn't have to spit after taking off the shoe, which is the usual sequence. It accords with the case that happened to Rabbi Yami. Rabbi Abba Bar Mama was sitting before him at a chalitza. Rakaka mekame de tachlotz. And what happened, exactly the case that she spat before taking off the shoe. Only Rabbi Yami, chalotz lavashar latigra. Like finish it up, do the chalitza, take the shoe off, and we're done. In other words, he's agreeing with this ruling that you don't, if you've already spat, then you don't need to spit again. Oh my Rabbi Abba, but she's supposed to spit after the shoe. So Rabbi answers, Harakalei, she did spit, right? She spit before, so that counts. Vetero. So he says, so what does it hurt you if she spits again? Let her spit again, right? And do it in the right order. So umabakach, what's the problem? Like spit again. There's no prohibition against spitting. Nafek minachorba. The answer is because you could mess things up this way. The amra tehadavatira, because if you tell her go ahead and spit again after the shoe, amre, so people will say rakika kamaisa le spa mashasha. The first spitting doesn't have any there's nothing to it, no substance to it. In other words, once she spat, she can still do yibum. But Asi, in other words, she's already started the. So if people see that you're making her spit afterwards, then they'll think that the spitting beforehand wouldn't count, but it does count, right? So what's the problem? Asi l'mishri chalutza lachin. So she's kind of partway through the chalitza ceremony, and you think, oh, she could change her mind, right? If the first spitting has no consequence, then in a future case, when the Yevama spits, then they'll say, oh, that doesn't matter, right? It's the shoe that matters, really. But really, it partly matters. It matters in the sense that once she's begun the chalitza, now she's forbidden to the other brothers, right? Because remember, once if you're still connected to the other brothers, but once you've done chalitza, then you're forbidden to them again, right? Like a brother's wife. So people will think that the initial spitting is of no meaning, but it's not true, and it could mess things up. So Gemara says, well, wait, but don't things need to be done in order? It should be invalid, right? Like the spitting shouldn't count. So Gemara says, it's supposed to be in order, but it's not. Doesn't after the fact, it doesn't matter. So if you've done both actions, then they're both valid, even out of order. And that's why we're concerned that people will think that less people think that the spitting before has no consequence, but it does. Now, Husavar the Chuye Kamatchile. Rabba thought that Ravami was just kind of, telling him it was a stupid question, not wanting to answer. Nafak dak vashkach. So he went and did his research. He looked and he found a brisa, the Tanya. Ben shehiknim chalitza l'rekika, ben shehiknim rekika l'chalitza, masha asa asa. The brisa says specifically, it doesn't matter what order you do it in. You're supposed to do it in one order, but if you do it in the other order, the actions are still valid. Okay. Levi nafak l'kiryasa. Levi went to town. Literally went to town. He is like, apparently he was like Rav's agent. Rav sent him out to see what's going on, what do people need, what are they, what rulings are needed. So he went to, I guess he had a circuit, he went to the smaller villages in the neighborhood, in the area. So they asked him on this trip, Gidemas Moshe. So if you have a woman who has no arms, can she do chalitza, right? Can she remove the shoe with another part of her body? If she doesn't have arms. And they asked him, Yevama Shirak Gadam Mahu. What if the Yevamot spits, but what comes out is blood, right, and not spit. Does that count? And thirdly, they asked him, completely unrelated. Well, both of these are, well, yeah, it's unrelated to Yevamot. Aval agid lecha es harashum b'ksav emes is a verse from Daniel, where an angel says to Daniel, "I'll tell you what's truly written up in heaven." Right. So, like, what does that mean? Like, things written in heaven, are there some that are truthful and not some that are not truthful? Why is these? By the fact that the angel said, "I'll tell you what the true writing is," does that mean that there's false writing? Levi didn't know the answer to these things. Also, so he came back to the academy and he asked why. So the answer to him, first thing is, if you can't remove the shoe with your hand. So when the Torah says she takes off the shoe, it doesn't say she takes off the shoe with her hand, it says she takes off the shoe. It doesn't matter how she takes it off. We assume that she uses her hand, but there's no requirement for that. Miksi Biyarka wrote, and when it says she spits, yes, the act of spitting. It doesn't matter what comes out, if it's blood or spit, right? She did the action of spitting, so that should be sufficient. And now the third thing, the verse in Daniel, what does it mean, truthful writing? Is there non-truthful writing in heaven? No problem. We're talking about, decrees that are written in heaven. In other words, what's going to happen on earth, right? So if God writes something, if he writes it with an oath, saying, "I swear, by God," as it were, this is, this person will experience this or whatever. If it's with an oath, then it is definitely truthful. In other words, it's definitely going to happen. But something that does not have an oath associated with it by God can be revoked. So it's not necessarily true in the sense that it won't necessarily happen because it can be revoked. Rosh Shmuel Barami, and this is accords with Rosh Shmuel, the Rosh Shmuel Barami son, who said, how do you know that a decree, a heavenly decree that is made with an oath by God, that it cannot be torn up? Shanamar, I've sworn about the house of Eli. Eli was the high priest in Shiloh, whose sons went off whose sons were corrupt, and they basically administered the Mishkan, the tabernacle, corruptly. So God swears that the sin of the house of Eli will never be forgiven by sacrifice. Will never be forgiven by or atoned for by sacrifice forever. So Gemara says, so since it says that forever, and it says because it's an oath, so it kind of implies that it can never be revoked. Rava said about this, note that it says it can never be atoned by sacrifice. But you know what? It can be atoned for through the study of Torah. Abaye says, you got it wrong. Yeah, you can't atone for it through sacrifice, but you can atone for it through kindness, right? Through being kind to other people. Rabba, and by the way, Rabba Abaye, these two competing views, Mibei Eli Kosta, they were both descendants of the house of Eli. Rabba Diasavitara Hava Arbin Shnin. Rabba lived 40, who exclusively studied Torah. He lived for 40 years. Abaye Diasavitara Ubig Milos Chasadim Hava Shitin Shnin. Abaye, who both studied Torah and involved himself with acts of kindness, he lived for 60 years. So the implication is that Abaye had it right. That the way to atone for his ancestor, or to escape the curse of his ancestors, was, although the Gemara is careful to point out it's both, right? Torah and kindness. I don't think you can get away with just being a nice guy. You also have to learn to study Torah. Tana Rabbana, Rabbi's taught. There was a family in Jerusalem. They would die at the age of 18. And they came and told Rabbi Yochanan, maybe it looks like you're descendants of the house of Eli, and that's the curse that you die young. Shanamar v'chol marbis beischa yamusu anashim. It said about the family of Bailey, all of those who are raised in your house will die as men. In other words, like men and not old people, right? They'll die in their prime, I guess you would translate. So you advise them, go and study Torah, and that's how you can escape the curse and live. And that's indeed what happened. And they called the family name was called the Yochanan family, out of gratitude or respect to Rabbi Yochanan, who suggested this. Amar Shmuel bar Unya Amar Rav Shmuel said, how do you know that the decree against the community is never final? What? It's never final. It's never sealed, literally. God says, if you, even if you, even if you do your laundry, as it were, metaphorically, with lye and use a lot of soap, your sin is still a stain, right? So in other words, and this is in the plural, so it's talking about the community. So there is such a thing as a permanent decree. So Gemara says, oh, you know what that means? It means that even if it's sealed, it can still be torn up. So, you know, I mean, I don't really see what they're getting at here, because the idea is there's always going to be a stain on you you're always going to have the effects of this decree, right? But now we're saying, well, but you can tear it up, right? I mean, it's just another metaphor for how to escape or end this decree. But anyway, so but there's a competing verse that says, who is like God, who is there whenever we call to him, right? So if he's there whenever we call to him, it's like even if there was a decree against the community and it's sealed, God is still there for us to call to change. But there's a competing verse that says, seek out God when he is to be found, right? Implying that there are times when he can't be found. Like there are better times and worse times. So it's not always the case that you can seek out God, that you can petition God. Our answer is lo kasha. The difference is an individual or a community. Yachidemas, when is God available for an individual? Rabbi Baravua, Nachman says, the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, then even an individual can always address God, or can be addressed, can appeal to God, whereas a community always has that privilege. So this is, I think, actually one of the sources for the importance of davening with the minyan, of praying with the minyan in the shul, because then you become a community. Now, there's no mitzvah anywhere that says you have to pray with the community. You're supposed to pray, you're supposed to address God, but there's no mitzvah that you should do it with a minyan. I mean, there are parts that you can only do with a minyan, but no mitzvah that you have to do that. So what's up with that? So this source indicates that it's more effective. God is always available to a community more so than just an individual. They sent another ruling to the father Shmuel. Let's say a Yevamot who started the ceremony with spitting and she spits blood. She has to complete the chalitza. Because even if you feel like it has to be spit and not blood, but there must be some spit mixed in with the blood. It's not possible that there's no spit mixed in there. So she has begun the chalitza process. So they asked, regarding a zav, right, a person who has an emission. So this Bryce is saying, what about blood that comes out of such a person? You might think that the blood itself is tamei. Talmud Lomar is zovo tamei. No, the zov, the flow whatever the I don't even know what you call it, right? But the Zav flow, that is what's tame, but blood, other liquids that come out even from the same place, and not tame. So if that's the case, if it's the case that, so it sounds like there can be blood without spit, right? Blood comes out of your mouth. Then it sounds like it can be pure blood, because if there was spit mixed within, then it would be tame. So how can we say here it's not tame? It must be pure blood. So how can you say that when the Yevama spits blood that it could be only blood? Well, kasha kan b'motzetzas, kan b'shoses. We're talking about in the case of the chalitza, we're talking about the Yevama who like who sucks blood out of her teeth, as it were, and then spits it out. Then there must be spit in there. But the Zav case we're talking about is not where he's generating this blood, right? But it just kind of drools out of his mouth. Then that could be only blood and doesn't have to contain spit. Okay, moving on to the next part of the mission. You have a deaf woman, a deaf mute woman, who's not one of the eligible people. What is that? I'm going to read them Arav. Zudi Rameir, Rav Meir said that you have to be concerned that this was a valid chalitza, but the rabbi said no. If the person is ineligible because they're a minor or because they're cherish or shota, it's completely meaningless. Next thing in the Mishnah, Ketana Shechalza. You have a underage, a minor girl who did chalitza. The Mishnah said she has to do it again when she becomes when she reaches the age of majority. But if she doesn't do chalitza again, then the original chalitza is not valid. I'm going to read them around. That's Rav Meir's opinion. Ish kasur b'parsha, makshin ish ish, because when the Torah talks about this chalitza case, it says when a man is married, and dies and has no children, and since when a man, which we take to mean an adult man, we're going to link that to the woman as well, has to be an adult. But the rabbi said, Ish kasur b'parsha, Isha bengadola bengatana. What makes you say that? Sure, it says a man. So I grant you that the man has to be an adult for the Yevama situation to take hold, but it doesn't say that about the woman. The woman could be a minor as well. And who do we mean when we say the other rabbis? Rabbi Yossi. That's Rabbi Yossi. How do we know it's Rabbi Yossi? So here's the story. Rabbi Shimon bar Rabbi, Hawiyasne. Let's close the window. There's a lawnmower outside here. Hear me okay?
Now I don't hear you. Now you're good.
The person who should look down to the ground, not like shouldn't be looking up. Are you a nai believe sham kol hayamim? the my presence will be in the land always, right? So in the land means like don't look for me in heaven, in planet on the ground. But the other one says, "Ain't no, you should look up to the sky." El Bashamayim. So the conclusion. Let us lift our hearts with our hands to God in heaven, right? In the heaven. So you should look up to the heaven. So the third guy, Rabbi Shmuel, comes along. Amar Louis said to them, what do you want? We're talking about prayer. Amar Lahu, Kachamar. This is what my father said, and his father was Rabbi Yossi. What you really should do is keep your eyes down, but your heart should be, as it were, facing upward. Like your feelings should be towards heaven, but your gaze should be on earth. So that you can fulfill both of these conditions. Then Rabbi comes to the yeshiva. Those who were fast, who were quick, they went quickly to their places. The Rabbi Shmuel, the Rabbi Yossi, Agav Yukre have a Mufasa Azav. Rabbi Shmuel was heavy, so he was walking slowly to his place. Amalei Abdan. So Abdan, some other guy in the yeshiva, said to him, Mihu Zashem Mufasea al Rashi Amkadosh. Who is this? Who's like, it's like if you're in a crowded theater, and you're kind of getting to your seat in the middle because you were late. You make everybody have to stand up for you. So it's like, who's this guy who's troubling everybody to get up? While he gets to this spot. Amalei said, "Ani Yishmael Rabbi Yossi. I'm Yishmael, son of Rabbi Yossi. Shabasul Torah Mirab. I came to learn Torah from Rabbi. Amalei v'chiata hagun lomo Torah from Rabbi. Yeah, you think you're so good? You're worthy to learn Torah from Rabbi. Amalei. So he answered, If Moshe could learn from God, right? Moshe is a nobody compared to God. If he could learn from God, then I, even if I'm a nobody, can learn from Rabbi. Moshe may have been nothing compared to God, but you're no Moshe, right? I knew Moshe, and you're no Moshe, as they say in politics. He says, well, yeah, but it's a good analogy because is Rebbe God? Rebbe's just a man. I can learn from a man, even if I'm not like Moshe. I'm Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said, Shakli Rabbi lemitrapse. And Rabbi didn't intervene, didn't say anything, and he got his just desserts. Because of the low Rabbi, because when he in this conversation, Rabbi Yossi referred to Rabbi as your teacher. When to the guy who was giving him a hard time, he says, "Is your teacher God?" Right? He didn't say our teacher or my teacher. So anyway, the story continues. By and by, Asya Yevamot Lakame Rabbi. So Yevamot comes in. Amar Le Rabbi Lab. Rabbi said to Abdan, the guy who like the usher, Puk Badka. Go and check her out. See if she is, apparently she was a young woman or young girl. So he's like, check her out. See if she has reached the age of majority. So he goes out with the woman. Amalei Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel said, Kacham Rabba. My father said. My father being Rabbi Yossi. Ish kasav of Harsha. Isha ben Gadol ben Katana. As we saw before, Rabbi Yossi's opinion. The other opinion, and now we're demonstrating that this is in fact Rabbi Yossi's opinion, is that the man has to be an adult for the yibum to be practiced. The woman can be an adult or a minor. So Rabbi said to him, "Ta, come back. Lo tzricha. You don't have to check out the whether she is a minor or not." Because Rabbi Yossi, my elder, my superior, he already ruled that whether it doesn't matter, even if she's a minor, yibum still takes place, or chalitza still takes place. So Abdan is slowly, like now he's got to go back to his place, so he's got to make everybody get up. He's stepping around the other people. So now the shoe's on the other foot, as it were. Amalei Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yossi. So Rabbi Shmuel says to him, "Misha tzarich lo am kadosh, yafasa or rashi am kadosh." Somebody who is needed by the congregation, he can he can step through the congregation. Misha ain't tzarich lo am kadosh, but if you're not doing a useful thing for the people, you're not doing your job anymore. Like before, Rebbe said, go do this. Now he says, no, you don't have to go. It doesn't give you license to trouble everybody and step over everybody to get back to your seat. Rebbe Labdan, and Rebbe said to Usher, yeah, you're right. Stay where you are. You don't have to go back to your regular seat. So this is kind of turnabout is fair play. Tana, and we have a brisa. But also Shah Nitztara Abdan. Another brisa says that this Asher Abdan, at that point he got tsaras. The Tavu Shnei Banav, and not only that, but he had two sons who drowned. The Umanu Shnei Kalazav, and his two daughters-in-law performed miyum. In other words, he had two daughters-in-law who were married to his sons as minors, and then when they reached the age of majority, they annulled the marriage. So obviously not a pleasant thing. So basically, he got his just desserts for being so haughty. Amar Rav Nachman says, "Brich Rachmana de Kaspe la Abdan b'Hai Alma." Blessed is God who shamed Abdan in this world, and thus spared is a common theme that righteous people suffer in this world, so that they don't they get their punishment, whatever their due is in this world, and then in the next world they're free and clear. Amar Avami Midrash Rebbe Shel Beribi Nilmod. We can learn from Beribi, another rabbi, Katana Chaletzes B'Putus, that a girl who's a minor, she can do chalitza at the age of when you become a pu'uta, which is the age where young children are legally allowed to buy and sell. In other words, they have a concept or they have a grasp of the consequences of buying and selling. Rav Amar, but Rav says no, you have to wait longer until the girl can understand the idea of vows, right? The seriousness of vows, which is a little bit old. The Hilchasan, the halacha is Anshe Saras. We actually rule according to our mayor that none of this is relevant. Chalitza only applies once the girl reaches the age of majority. Okay. Next piece of the Mishnah. Chalta b'shnayim. If you do chalitza with only two judges there, it has to be a full court of at least three. So the Mishnah said the chalitza is not valid, but Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yochanan said it is valid. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yumi, Rabbi Yosef said, no, we don't rule like those two. We rule like the anonymous voice in the Mishnah, that this chalitza with only two judges is not valid at all. V'amar Rav Nachman Chadazim. But Rav Nachman already said this. Like, why is he repeating this ruling? The Amar of Yosef Bar Menuhin Rav Nachman Chalitza b'Shlosha. He already said specifically chalitza has to be with three. So why is he repeating himself, saying and not with two in this case, like the other guys in this case in this Mishnah? Where it says tzriche, you need both rulings. If his original statement that you need three was the only one that was stated, I might have thought that means only a priority, like that's the ideal way to do it. But maybe he thinks that if you do it with only two judges, it's fine. And he says that no, we reject the ruling of those who say it's valid with two. In other words, it's a hard and fast rule. What if it only had said this latter, like in our Mishnah, that the halacha is not like the pair that says two is valid, Ella Katanakama, but rather like the Tanakama, Havamina Diabat. I would have thought that means that only after the fact, like maybe three is the fallback position, but maybe you really need five to begin with. So that he tells us Tricha, no, that his original statement was The halacha is you need 3, and it's a real halacha. It's dafka 3, and it can't be less than. Masa shechaltu, there was an incident of a case of chalitza when they were in prison, right? And there were no witnesses, no judges. But the man and the woman were in prison together, and they found out that that the brother died, etc. So he did chalitza, and they were on their own. And Rabbi Akiva said that works. Beina leveina miyadana. So Mara says, first of all, how do you know if it actually happened, right? Like there was no witnesses. We don't usually accept something that occurred with no witnesses. Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel. The Eidim Ron also mibechutz. No, they watched. There were witnesses. They were able to look inside the prison, and they saw that the chalitza was done. So even though there was no court because of the exigent circumstances, it was ruled to be okay. See, a little bit more. I think there's a good place to stop for today.
Okay.
Okay, we'll pick it up here tomorrow.
Thank you, Doug. See you tomorrow.